I want to read you what one Republican presidential candidate says about a few of the key issues that are at least important to me, and I want to see how many of these you agree with, and then you try to guess who I'm talking about. First one, debt and taxes. Quote, working Americans like lower taxes. So do I. Lower taxes benefit all of us, creating jobs and allowing us to make more decisions for ourselves about our lives. Is that great or what? On American independence and sovereignty, he says, quote, the so-called free trade deals in world governmental organizations are a threat to our independence as a nation. They transfer power from our government to unelected foreign elites. Another big match for me. On borders and immigration, look at this one. The talk must stop. We must secure our borders now. A nation without secure borders is no nation at all. It makes no sense to fight terrorists abroad when our front door is left unlocked. How many times have you said that? Next, the Second Amendment. Quote, I share a founder's belief that in a free society, each citizen must have the right to keep and bear arms. Amen, brother. And finally, homeschooling. Quote, my commitment to ensuring homeschooling remains a practical alternative for American families is unmatched by any presidential candidate. I got to tell you, you read those things and this guy, at least to me, sounds like a dream candidate. And then you find out that it was Ron Paul. Yeah. Same Ron Paul who pulls in a whopping 2% in the polls of likely Republican voters. How does that happen? Even though this guy has raised over $5 million in the third quarter, only 2%. Why is that? Well, you know, he's got for me at least, the breaking point are the policies that I don't agree with, like pulling out of Iraq and legalizing drugs. But on the whole, I probably agree with his libertarian founding father Constitution-focused values more than other candidates. Why then doesn't America consider voting for him? Real story is, maybe, just maybe, because you can certainly judge a book by its cover. And Ron Paul's cover, not exactly looking like a bestseller, you know? He's got some pretty sane proposals, and if his fundraising is any indication, he has tapped into the frustration every American feels right now towards the dummies in Washington. But unfortunately, no matter what he's selling, for good or for ill, he ends up looking like the mayor of Crazy Town. Thank you so much. Let me go to Ron Paul now. He's the congressman from Texas. Congressman, I draw this spider web up here, and I see it, and I think to myself, at the center of this really is the Fed. They're in this thing all the way around. And yet, you want to talk about powerful people. You've got a majority of congressmen that are willing to say, we need to open up the books of the Fed. You can't even get this thing brought to the floor now. Why is that?
Well, so far we haven't been able to. We have 273, which includes almost 90 Democrats, so the large majority of the congressmen want it. They don't want it because they really understand the issue and they're not motivated by philosophy as much as the fact that this has struck a chord with the American people, and the American people are demanding more transparency. So I think this is very good. Now, I think we had the first demonstration last week when Jim DeMint tried to bring it up in the Senate. Even though he was doing exactly what they had done 4 times on that same bill, they ruled him out of order and said, well, you're not following the rules. That means the information is coming up from above and on down. That means from the administration and leadership, both Republicans and Democrats.
So who's blocking it? Can you name names? Who's blocking it?
Well, I don't know the individual, but I would know one thing. If Obama wanted change and changing this system, at least exposure, he could do something. But, you know, he got nearly $1 million from Goldman Sachs. So we don't expect anything from the administration. The same people, you know, this to me is a perfect example of my argument that I've made, and I think you generally agree with it. There's not a whole lot of difference between the two parties.
No.
You know, they're owned by the same people. You take this Goldman Sachs issue. Wouldn't it be revealing if we were able to get the transcripts and all the agreements and discussion that all Treasury and all Federal Reserve officials have had with Goldman Sachs? I mean, that would be a revelation. But, boy, they're hysterical when they think we're coming down close to saying that we might be able to open up the books. I got some information the other day that during another crisis in Central America, the banks were in trouble, and our Fed went to the IMF and told the IMF to pay the interest to the banks. I mean, that's how corrupt it areas. And the whole thing is as this system continues to falter, they're not going to give up. They're going to move all these shenanigans over to the IMF. They're going to have a world organization. So the powerful elite then will have a world currency. That's what they're being planning for right now. So we as a people really have to wake up. My effort is exposing the Fed, opening up the books. The American people want it, and we have both Republicans and Democrats demanding it. But you made the right point. How are we going to get the leadership to do what the American people are demanding?
How much time do we have, Ron? How much time do we have to wake up?
That is hard to say. Timing is really tough in Austrian economics. We know what the inevitable outcome will be. But I would guess it's just a few more years. I would think the handwriting will be clearly on the wall before Obama finishes his first term, which means the next shoe is the crisis in the dollar, the value of the dollar, not just the financial system. We will see high inflation rates soon.
Congressman Ron Paul, thank you very much, sir.
One man has stood apart, stood strong and true, voting against every tax increase, every unbalanced budget, every time, standing up to the Washington machine, guided by principle. Ron Paul, the one who will stop the spending, save the dollar, create jobs, bring peace, the one who will restore liberty. Ron Paul, the one who can beat Obama and restore America now.
I'm Ron Paul, and I approve this message.